we go. Hi there, this is Steve from Conductive Labs, and we're going to do a quick little tour of the NDLR user interface. So let's go ahead and plug it in. As it boots up, I'm going to hold the shift button down, and that will just hold the boot screen so you can actually read what firmware and what your serial number is. When you let go, it'll just boot up. This is the normal mode that you see the NDLR when you boot, and it's based on all the buttons on the middle and all these labels here on in the regular mode. So let's go ahead and do a quick little tour. So if I click these buttons, what it's going to do is change my chord based on, in this case we're in C major, so it's just going through the different chords of C major. Notice it says triad, so if I want to hit shift and this button, that'll give me just seventh, and as I hit these buttons now, it'll go around playing sevenths. Notice when I do, let's try it again with the suspended second, it turns blue. That's telling me that it's not this current chord, that's a suspended second, but it's the next chord. So if I hit that, that'll happen, triad, and then it'll go to triad. And that's how you sort of work what chords you're playing, either the chord number, like a 1-4-5 progression, or the chord type, with triad, seventh, or suspended. These here are the labels for all the encoders. So the screen stays the same all on the outside, and it's the little window on the inside that changes, and it's context sensitive. So let's start with the pad. If I turn this knob, you notice it jumped to pad, and if I rotate this, you'll see the numbers moving. This is telling me my low number, my high number, and my mid number. And up here there's a little graphic that shows the pad actually moving. If I change the range of the pad, which is the next knob, you can see it getting wider, and I can move it back and forth. Right? Now, as you notice, as I touch these encoders, these triangles will light up, and that's telling me which encoder is the active encoder. And actually, the numbers, the things that are going to change, turn yellow. If I want to do the alternate control, which in this case range and spread are on the same knob, if I hit that button, you notice the arrow now points down, so that's telling me that I'm on spread. So if I change this, now the spread changes. And if I click it again, now the range changes. And that's how you navigate the different features of each of the parts. Let's look at the drone now. If I turn this knob, it'll automatically go to drone. The top is position. Note that the triangle is pointing upward, and I can change the position of the drone. I click it again, it points to the side, which tells me it's the middle thing. This is how many notes I'll play for my drone. And I'll click it again, it points downward, and that's telling me the trigger. I could go ahead and change the trigger. Now, I'm not going to get into what all these things mean. You should read the manual, watch other videos, etc. I'm just trying to give you a tour of how to use the interface. If I rotate this bottom button, by the way, I wanted to let you know that there's a dead zone, what's called a dead zone for each of these. So when you turn it just a little bit, it won't change the value until you move it a little bit more. And then, so you don't have to worry about the value changing when you rotate the knob to change the context. Okay, so here I'm changing, notice it's pointing to the side. That means I'm changing the key. And if I click it again, that's changing the mode. And if I click it again, now I'm changing the beats, the BPM. Over here are the motifs. Now all four buttons are used for the motif. So if I turn this, I'm changing the position, which is the top. Note that triangle pointing upward of the motif 1. If I click this button, it'll toggle me between motif 1 and 2. And if I rotate here, you'll see that now motif 2 is actually moving. So I can go back, motif 1. So that's how I toggle between this being motif 1 or motif 2. We'll leave it in motif 1 for now. And again, I'll just show you as I move these. This is the variation. The shape changes up here. Click it again. Now I can change my pattern. You'll see that changing in here. Again, this is for motif 1. Also note down here it says motif 1 in yellow and motif 2 is in white. So the one I'm in is the one I'm changing. Okay. I won't go through the rest of the other knobs. Well, I can just twist them really fast, but the other knobs will change what they say they'll do. All right. So that's basically the context changing of the knobs and how to move between the different labels by pushing on them. All right. Let's talk a little bit about how to turn your different parts on and off. If I press this button, notice that goes blue. That's telling me that the pad is now playing. That means the MIDI notes for the pad are coming out of the noodler. And I can turn them all on independently, on and off. Also, there's a button up here that says all pause and play, and if I hit that, then it will turn them all on or all off. Yes. Okay. This button also can be shifted. So notice it says mod down here. Anything that's in italics needs the shift button. So if I hold shift and hit drone, you'll notice there's a red ring around the drone dot. That's telling me that the modulation is paused for the drone, and I can unpause it. So it's cool. You can turn modulation on and off for each of the parts independent of turning them on and off. Right? And this global button up here can turn them all on or off, as you saw earlier. But also, if you hold shift button, you can turn all the mods on and off for everybody. So that's a good way to turn modulation on and off when you want. Okay, now let's take a quick look at the menuing system. So this is normal mode. In order to get to menu mode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the menu button, which is pretty obvious. So I click that, and the first menu it should bring you into is Menu Settings 1, which is over here. Menu Settings 1 is primarily where you set up all your MIDI channels. So let's take a quick look at that. But I'm sorry, let's first just talk about how to get in and out of menus. If I want to go to menu 2, I just push this encoder. Menu 3, I push that one. If I want to get to the LFO config, which it says right here, I'll push that. And these on this side are my 8 modulation slots. So that's 1 and 2, 3 and 4. You see up there it says it. 5 and 6, 7 and 8. We'll take a tour of each one very briefly, but let's go back to menu 1. So I'll click on that. So again, these are the menu, the MIDI channel settings. So let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. So if I want to change the MIDI channel in which motif comes out on and the port, I use this knob because it corresponds to that box. Again, maybe I didn't say this yet, but these 2 boxes correspond to these knobs. These 2 boxes correspond to these 2, and so forth. So it's direct manipulation. I don't have to menu dive, right? So if I want to change motif 1, it's this knob. And if I want to change it to, let's say, channel 5, and I want to send it out of the MIDI B port, I will just rotate this knob until I go to 5. And then I'm going through all the ports, so USB 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then MIDI A and MIDI B. If I want to change motif 2 to, let's say, MIDI port 13 over the USB virtual port 1, I would go ahead and change this to channel 13. There we go. And then I'd go back to USB 1. And so that's how that would change. Now, if I wanted to have them go out all the ports, I can do all. Whoops, there you go. It's right there. Now, all is probably best not to use all that much because it's going to send it out everywhere. But it's good for testing, actually, because you can say, okay, I know this is supposed to be coming out of channel 13. Which of these 2 MIDI ports or USB ports are coming out? These noodler channel for noodler control and MIDI channel for keyboard transpose are important. I actually just made a post on our blog about that. On our forum about that on our website. You can read more there about it, but of course also in the manual, everything's covered. Okay, so settings 2, these are velocities for the motif and pad, and some clock div stuff for the 2 analog ports. Let's go to menu settings 3. Tells you your firmware. There's some polychaining, some more clock info, some quantization stuff. Again, read about it in the manual. But what I wanted to show real quick is these are for the global settings save and load. So let's say I'm got all my MIDI channels set up and my modulation just so, and I want to save that. What I can do is I can choose a target slot, let's say target slot 6, and I hit the shift button and hit that encoder, and it saved it to 6. Now it loaded 6 back in, so now everybody's on 6. And it reminds you what to do. It's a shift encoder, so that's how you remember how to do that. Okay, so let's pop back out of the menu. So now we're back to our regular interface. I go back here. Let's say I want to change my mode back to major, and we'll stay in A major. So there you go. Now, some deeper functions of the noodler, I would say, are the modulation matrix to start. So let's go ahead and take a peek at that. We'll pop in there. Now, remember, to get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, 8, I just click on any of these knobs. So I'm in menu mode, and I click there, and now I'm in my modulation slot 1 and 2. Just like the menus, the knobs correspond directly to the features of the region. So there's a white line across the middle of the screen, so it's separated into top, which are these 4 knobs, and bottom, which are these 4 knobs. This is the source, so I can choose what source I'm going to use to modulate with. And this is the destination, so I can choose what destination I'm going to modulate. It's a good idea to choose your source and destination first, because once you change your mod amount, it's going to start modulating the destination. So right now, if I rotate my destination knob, it'll be modulating this square wave across all the things that I sweep through. Could be a cool effect, or it could mess everything up, so be a little cautious there. Okay, so that's basically how you use the modulation matrix, the source and destination, and the amount, and then the destination value. By the way, when it goes red here, what that's telling me is I'm clipping, meaning the high point of this wave is going to go past the value. So it's just a little indicator. Again, read all about it in the manual. All right, so I'm going to pop back out to regular mode. These callouts on the side here look a little bit like cartoon callouts where someone would be talking in a bubble. That's indicating that there's a pattern editor there, a rhythm editor here, meaning on these knobs. And on this side, we've got a chord sequencer and a MIDI controller. These guys will be coming in the future. They're not implemented yet. But in order to get to these, notice between the Shift and the menu button, there's the same call out with a little plus sign. That's just a visual reminder that to get to one of these, you have to hit Shift and menu at the same time. So I'm going to hit Shift menu, and it's going to bring me to the last editor I was in. In this case, it's the pattern editor. And so I can go to the rhythm editor by clicking here, and that's how I toggle back and forth. If you want to go to chord sequence or MIDI controller later, you would just click on these, but right now they don't bring you anywhere. Okay, so let's go to the pattern editor. Again, there's 8 boxes in here. They're a little smushed around the side here because I wanted a bigger middle area for editing, but these 2 boxes correspond to these knobs, these 2 to these, and so forth down the path. So I can load patterns. I can change the variation of the motif 1, in this case because I'm in motif 1. I can change the rhythm. I can change Conductive, length. And then to edit this, I use like an Etch-a-Sketch on the bottom. So this moves me to the step. Notice it's telling me what step I'm on, and then tells me what the value is, and I can change the value by rotating this knob. Again, plenty of details in the manual, but it's kind of fun. You can change these and make a really cool pattern. The reason why I can't go any further than that is because my length is at 11, so if I move that over, I can go by, and then I can edit those. Yep. It's a little hard to see with this camera, I think, but there's a dark blue and a light blue, so you can see what step you're playing and what steps you're not playing. Okay, enough about that. We'll pop back out. And again, that's pretty much an overview of the user interface. Pretty simple to use, very little menu diving. And that's that. Thank you so much.